Beyond the buzzer, inside the game, this is Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
All right, here we go. Wednesday, middle of June, the 17th. Glad you're here with us, Sports IQ, Larry Smith. Good guest coming up here. If you've been following baseball at all, you have seen the heroics, or if you follow us here on the show, you've heard about the heroics of Jacob Misiorowski. Well, producer Tony is a big baseball fan, so we're going to tag team an interview coming up here with Todd Rosiak. He's the Brewers beat writer for the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. So we'll talk with him in a few minutes about the Miz and this amazing run. Names like Gibson and Hershiser. That's what he's where he's put himself. And so we'll talk about that. Also, the Florida Gators basketball team, lest we not forget, they're 1 year removed from a championship. They were a shot away from getting back to the Sweet 16 and maybe beyond. Kevin Brockway, our friend from the Gainesville Sun USA Network, here to talk about what Todd Golden is building there. Now, I can't wait to ask him, too, how much of a conversation was had with Todd Golden and the North Carolina Tar Heels after they fired Hubert Davis. Really haven't talked much about that. And so we'll get his thoughts on that as well. All that is coming up here on the show. Let's get to a couple of headlines for you. The World Cup, of course, has begun in Canada, Mexico, and the U.S., and some of the best pitchmen putting their best foot forward, no pun intended. Lionel Messi beginning Argentina's defense of the FIFA World Cup with a stunning hat trick as Argentina defeated Algeria 3-0 at Kansas City's Arrowhead Stadium. Messi scored in the 17th, 60th, and 76th minute, scoring his first ever hat trick at the World Cup on his 200th appearance for Argentina, as he became the first man to appear in 6 World Cups. 20 years ago, with his first World Cup goal, he became the youngest man in Argentinian history to score a World Cup goal. And now, 20 years later, he also adds the title of oldest Argentinian player to score a World Cup goal. The goals took him to 16 World Cup goals overall. That ties the all-time record. So again, Messi just keeps doing great things. It's amazing. In New Jersey, it was France behind 2 goals from their star, Kylian Mbappé, beating Senegal 3-1. Senegal had some chances to make this interesting, but a shot off the crossbar and a header that sailed just high failed to score, and the Frenchman came away with the win and the also all-important 2 points. If you own stock in Disney, well, the NBA Finals were certainly good news for you. The Knicks' 94-90 victory over San Antonio Saturday night to capture their first NBA title in 53 years averaged 24.5 million viewers on ABC and ESPN, makes it the most watched Game 5 since 1998. The audience peaked at 33 million as Finals MVP Jalen Brunson was putting the Raps on a 45-point performance as the Knicks rallied from a 10-point deficit in the fourth quarter. They rallied from double digits in this series in all 4 of their wins. Overall, the Finals averaged 20.6 million, according to Nielsen. That's the highest since the 1998 series between Chicago and Utah. That's when Michael Jordan and the Bulls won their 6th and final NBA title. That one averaged just over 29 million over 6 games. This year's ratings also the highest since ABC and ESPN started carrying the NBA Finals back in 2003. So it's just impressive stuff there. Again, great stock. And we talked again about just the parity. Some are saying parity not a good thing in the NBA with 8 different champions in 8 years. I totally disagree. That's 8 fan bases now that are fully dialed in, including some that you may have forgotten that won, like the Toronto Raptors are one of those. It's great for basketball, no question overall, to see the parity. Time now for your moment of awe. If I said the name George Zip Zabel to you, it probably wouldn't mean much. But what he did on this day, June 17th, 1915, was insane. Zabel played for the Chicago Cubs, and in 1915 was still early in what looked to be a promising career. He'd won his only start as a 22-year-old in 1913 and led the National League with 18 games finished in 1914. Well, in 1915, he had a 4-4 record when he was called on to relieve the starting pitcher with only 2 outs in the first inning. He never came out of the game, which lasted 19 innings. The Cubs beat the Brooklyn Robins, later known as the Dodgers, in that game, with Zabel going a Major League Baseball relief record, 18 1/3 innings. The Brooklyn starter, Jeff Pfeffer, went the distance, 18 2/3. It was Zip's finest moment. He developed arm issues and won only 2 more games the rest of the season and never pitched in the bigs after that year. Zip Zabel and the Major League Baseball record gets our moment of awe.
You're listening to Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
Sports IQ with Larry Smith. And, we've talked quite a bit this week, every week, about Jacob Misiorowski and what he is doing right now for the Milwaukee Brewers. Joining us once again is our Brewers beat writer, Todd Rosiak with the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. Todd, good to see you again. You kind of run out of superlatives. What's it like right now looking at this unbelievable streak he's been on in his last 8 starts, and he's been literally almost unhittable?
Well, first off, it's fun. It's not often that I get to the ballpark and I'm literally looking forward to what I'm going to see that night and wondering what I'm going to see that night. It's the best comparison I think I can give people in terms of just the way he's performed start by start is it hasn't been really since the second half of 2018 when Christian Yelich just went insane to win the MVP in the NL, where just every one of his at bats was kind of must see TV. That's how Miz is right now to me. Maybe the next closest thing would have been Corbin Burns in 2021 when he won the Cy Young, and that's what we're seeing right now. I mean, he's to me, even as well as Christopher Sanchez has pitched for the Phillies, and understanding right now that it's still, relatively early. We still got, 3+ months left in the season. I don't know how you don't call Jacob Misiorowski the front runner in the NL Cy Young Award balloting. It's just been insane what he's doing. He's not just going out there and pitching well. He's just absolutely dominating teams.
Yeah.
Guys have no chance. And it's been so, I don't ever remember seeing a pitcher going out there start after start and just absolutely making people look foolish like that. So we knew this kid was going to be good. We saw flashes of it last year, but we also saw the inconsistency to the point where he was pulled out of the rotation at the end of last year. And then he kind of had a resurgence in the postseason, throwing 104.5 and against the Cubs it was 102.3 and 104.3 and 104.2 against the Cubs. Kind of got him back on the radar screen and pitched well. And now he's throwing 103.7 on pitch number 91 in his start.
Wow.
That has never happened. It's never happened. So I'm going on and on here, but I think you can tell I'm impressed, and it's been just incredible to watch and to cover for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, we go on and on about him, and we're not there in Milwaukee watching him night after night. So, that's why we reached out and called. We were putting in perspective, like when you start comparing him to names like Earl Hershiser and Bob Gibson, you're in a special elite category. Because we were talking earlier this week. I mean, those are the kind of legends right now that he's competing against, if you will, in terms of the streak he's on.
Yeah, and it's one of the first things we do as reporters. Each day we get to the ballpark is you kind of peruse through the notes, the game notes for that night, or and teams generally pull out these little statistical nuggets, and this guy's ranked this, and this guy did this, and any day after a Miz start, the entire left-hand column of the notes is just all Misiorowski notes and all the superlatives and what he accomplished the night before. And it's crazy. And I kind of chuckle, Christopher Sanchez was the NL pitcher of the month for May. Miz's numbers were probably better overall, but I understand why Sanchez won. He had a heck of a year too. Don't get me wrong. A heck of a month too. Don't get me wrong. But even as good as Christopher Sanchez has been, he still appears mortal. He's not just absolutely blowing guys away. Miz is just he's otherworldly with what he's doing with his physical talents. And I was talking to some other writers and talking to some other people. It's hard not to talk about Miz a lot, and it's just. To me, it's a matter of, when is the first perfect game? When is the first no-hitter going to happen? It came really, really close against the Phillies his last time out. 15 strikeouts, that Kyle Schwarber single to lead off the fourth. Had he thrown a fastball there instead of a slider that kind of caught some of the plate, we may be talking about history here already. So to me, it's just a matter of time. And it is with any player, the big thing is going to be staying healthy. Hopefully he can stay healthy, continue to pitch consistently well as he has been. And, there will be some ups and downs, I'm sure, along the way. But by the time this season is over, assuming the health piece is there, the numbers are going to be crazy. Absolutely
no question.
Crazy.
Yeah, it is. It's insane. Talking with Todd Rosiak, he's the Brewers beat writer for the Milwaukee Journal. Sentinel. That game that he's referring to was last week. 15 strikeouts and a one-hit shutout. Only 95 pitches thrown. Faced a minimum 27 batters. I mean, that is just talk about being in control. And only 24 years old. And we were talking about when we had you on the show earlier this season about the fireballing, right? And hitting that in the gun. And like you said, now there's a consistency there. And there's more of the complete game. I think of someone like Greg Maddux and the great Braves pitchers back in the 90s that it was always must see, right? When these guys went on. Obviously, Maddux was not the fireballer, much more of a finesse pitcher. But in terms of just mowing guys down and facing the minimum and just being in control of your game, I think about that in terms of like every time Maddux went out, I wanted to go to the ballpark and watch him. And it feels like it's that kind of thing now with Miz.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, as we all know, Maddux was a surgeon. Miz is just destroying people.
Yeah.
And what's crazy too is Miz was not just destroying people, but in that start against the Phillies, he was Maddux-like. He was surgeon-like. He didn't go to a 3-ball count the entire night.
Wow.
And that, 95 pitches that he threw, I mean, that kind of lays the groundwork for that, obviously. So he's become must-see TV for everybody. Brewers fans here, ever since his first start last year, it was just over a year ago when he squared off against Paul Skeens of the Pirates and pitched 6 innings, and it was great. You could tell from that start that, this is a kid, even though Pat Murphy jokingly refers to him as Forrest Gump. This is a kid that's not intimidated by the environment. He's not blinded by the bright lights. He's very at home out there, and he's learning. He's seeing very quickly that his stuff plays at the highest level, and he likes to use that term "let it eat." So he's letting his fastball eat. Talking to his catchers, William Contreras, Gary Sanchez, they both say he's so good that he could that start against the Phillies. Let's take that, for instance, 95 pitches. He could have thrown 95 fastballs in that game and probably come out with the same result. That's how dominant he is. So the fans here are crazy happy, of course, excited. And you see that when the Brewers are on the road too. The word travels quickly, obviously. He's on all the highlights reels now. And, anybody that follows the game knows that he's, kind of the next hot thing. So his next start is coming up Friday night in Atlanta. And I'm looking forward to seeing that matchup because obviously the Braves are a really good offensive team. They're smart fans down there. It's usually a full ballpark. So it should be a lot of fun, and it should be another good start for the Miz.
Todd, let me jump in for a quick second. This is producer Tony from the show. And, in watching Miz and then reading about everything afterwards, I know the Brewers are being very careful with him. He's still only 24. His body's probably still getting used to the grind of Major League Baseball. How key was it they've put off his next start until this coming Friday to give him a little extra day of rest? Do you think that's going to be important as the season continues?
Yeah, absolutely. The Brewers have always been very cognizant of their young pitchers' innings and the amount that they're being used. And for a guy like Miz, who relies so heavily on the physical aspect, as we talked about earlier, he's not necessarily a surgeon. He's a guy who is 110% max effort pretty much every pitch. That's big. And last year, the Brewers were still kind of controlling Miz's innings. They were, keeping an eye on that sort of thing. The innings count is out the window this year, but they certainly are trying to bake in an extra day of rest when they can for him. And not only for him, but for their other guys too. Kyle Harrison, the left-hander that they got in the trade earlier this season, that's having an all-star caliber year. They're obviously being very cautious with him, trying to get him some extra rest. They've got some other young arms in the rotation that they're doing the same thing too with. And there'll be some pieces coming back, including Brandon Woodruff, in the coming days and weeks who have been injured. So that'll kind of factor in as well. But there's no question that as far as Miz goes, the guy is forefront of the mind of trying to keep healthy and trying to keep as fresh as possible, because when he's as fresh as can be, that's usually when you see the outings like he had against the Phillies, which was just pure domination.
Yeah, and I think from a team perspective, now you've got the Miz, like you said, you talked about Kyle Harrison. This is a team playing really good baseball right now, solidly from every angle, whether it be offense, defense, pitching, everything's coming together nicely. How important is it going to be for them to carry it through and into these dog days of summer and getting some rest? And from a writer's perspective, I want to ask you, how excited would you be to see, and this could be a second question, a Paul Skeens Miz matchup coming up, since they're in the same division? It's bound to happen at some point.
Yeah, and the Brewers have done a good job, like they did last year. Not last year around this time is when the momentum really kind of started gathering, and the snowball started making its way downhill. And if you remember, they rattled off win streaks of 8 games, 12 games, and 14 games, and they just ran away with the division. They're not quite there yet, but they've already built a pretty comfortable lead in the NL Central. And the rest of the division underneath them is all pretty much bunched up. Cardinals are playing over their skis a little bit. The Cubs have been disappointing after a tough start, or a good start, I should say. Pirates, kind of the same thing. They're kind of feeling themselves out a little bit. Reds have been disappointing. I think it's pretty fair to say they've had some injury problems too. So the Brewers just need to, keep clicking off series victories, and that's what they've been doing more often than not. It's series victory, occasional sweep. They did lose that crazy series last week in Vegas, but I mean, if you saw the numbers and the highlights of what was going on out there, the ball was just absolutely flying. So I think you can take that one out of the mix a little bit. But as far as Skeens versus Miz, awesome. Anytime we can get those kind of matchups, we're excited to see them, and they're fun. They're fun to write about. They're fun for the fans to watch. And don't think that Paul Skeens and Jacob Mizorowski don't. I don't know that necessarily they look that far ahead, but as you get closer to those series, you can kind of know who you're lining up with. And the Brewers are definitely trying to line their best guys up at start of series and in those matchups to try to take full advantage of him for sure.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to, even the All-Star break. Like, if the National League wants to roll out over those first 3 or 4 innings, can you imagine Sanchez, Miz, Skeens coming at you? Almost feel bad for American League hitters at that point.
Yeah, it's the one thing I will say regarding Miz. Last year he was let's just say he caused some controversy, not by his own design, but by Rob Manfred's design, by putting him in the All-Star game after 6 starts. Well, now nobody's going to quibble with that. We all know that he deserves to be there. The All-Star game is in Philly this year, and I certainly would expect Christopher Sanchez to start if he keeps pitching the way he is. But any other year, any other place, I think Miz would, certainly be in the discussion for that. And that would be a big deal for the Brewers franchise, because they've only ever had one other pitcher start an All-Star game, and that was Ben Sheets way back when. So it would be a cool thing. But, again, if Miz continues on this trajectory, you figure that there'll be, multiple probably All-Star starts in his future looking forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, if he can stay healthy, if Skeens can stay healthy, you're looking at guys that are going to dominate pitching-wise for the next 10 years in the National League. Todd Rosiak, thank you so much for taking some time and talking with us today, bringing us some info, talking about the Miz this fantastic season. Anytime you compare somebody to Bob Gibson and they're putting up those kind of numbers, you've got something special on your hands.
Yeah, for sure. It's been like I said, I can't say it enough. It's been fun it's must-see TV, and I'm already looking forward to Friday in Atlanta for sure.
Absolutely. Todd Rosiak, Milwaukee Brewers beat writer for the Journal Sentinel. Thank you so much. Appreciate you joining us, and enjoy that game Friday night.
You got it, guys. Thank you.
We're going to take a quick break here on the Sports IQ, but we'll be right back after this.
Do you want to save money on your next flight? Then pick up the phone and call. That's right, call. Because the best prices on airline tickets are not online. They're with SmartFares. See, SmartFares has special deals with the airlines. When they have unsold seats, they use SmartFares to fill them. So you get airline tickets at ridiculously low prices. They have access to great prices and discounts with over 500 different airlines, plus 300,000 hotels and rental car companies. Their prices are too low to publish online. The only way to learn more is make a free call. With the extra money you'll save, you can book another trip or treat yourself to dinner or shopping. So stop searching all of those travel sites to find the lowest price on your next trip. Let one of our SmartFares expert travel agents find the best prices for you. Call SmartFares today and get the best price on your next trip.
Are you tired of your website making your business look bad? Is your current web developer dropping the ball? Let's face it, if your website isn't making you money, it's broken. Let Neon Rain create a website that turns your visitors into customers. Neon Rain has worked with hundreds of businesses across North America, building custom websites and applications with modern designs that are easy to update and work well on mobile devices. They can do it for you too. What sets Neon Rain apart? They actually deliver on their promises. Call today for a free consultation. 303-957-3092. That's Neon Rain at 303-957-3092. Or visit them at neonrain.com.
Great stuff there. Welcome back here to the show. We have some other thoughts to pass along. A little bit of a surprising development, I guess, in Las Vegas. John Tortorella, who guided the Vegas Golden Knights to the Stanley Cup final after taking over in late March, will not return as head coach next season. Tortorella celebrates his 68th birthday next week. Surprise hire when he was brought in. Again, just 8 games left in the regular season. The Golden Knights had fired Bruce Cassidy, who had a year left on his contract, and the team was already in playoff position. Vegas, of course, made the big run, upsetting Colorado in the Western Conference Finals and reaching the Stanley Cup Finals, losing Game 6 Sunday night as the Carolina Hurricanes captured the Stanley Cup. Tortorella's deal with the Golden Knights was only through June 30th. That's the end of the league calendar. And certainly General Manager Kelly McCrimmon issued a statement thanking Tortorella for the guidance he provided, and said the decision when it was made to bring him in, a quote, "We needed an immediate impact to help us at a pivotal point in the season. Tort's experience and leadership proved to be the boost that we were looking for, helping guide us to the Stanley Cup final. We are grateful for Tort's passion, sincerity, and commitment to our organization, and we wish him and his family the very best." Tortorella, by the way, still an amazing record in leading at the championship, 21-8-1 with Vegas, including the playoffs. ESPN has some sources that say he would like to coach next season. Give him a call. He's got 1 ring and 1 amazing finals appearance on an impressive resume. Men's College World Series down to 4 teams after 2 more were eliminated on Tuesday. The 16th seed West Virginia trouncing Troy 12-0 in the early game to advance to take on North Carolina on Wednesday. The Mountaineers need 2 wins to advance to the championship series. UNC, playing out of the winner's bracket, would advance with just a single victory. Number 3, Georgia, meanwhile, edging number 6, Texas 2-0 in the nightcap to secure its spot in the semifinal round. The Bulldogs will now face Oklahoma, and like West Virginia, will need 2 wins to advance. The Sooners need just a single victory. Well, when Yankee star Aaron Judge went on the disabled list a few weeks ago, that some folks thought the Yankees might be headed for a little tumble in the standings. Well, folks, so far, things are fine and dandy in the Bronx. Spencer Jones hit his first Yankee Stadium home run of the second inning. Ben Rice and Paul Goldschmidt each added a 2-run drive in the 4th. And New York rocking Davis Martin in a 12-2 win over the White Sox on Tuesday. Garrett Cole is now 2-1 of the season. He gave up 2 runs, 3 hits, in 6 innings. Yankees now 8-4 since losing Judge indefinitely to a stress fracture in his right rib. In Cleveland, a Garrett Mitchell home run, providing the difference for the Brewers in a 2-1 win over the Guardians. The win went to Aaron Ashby, who is now halfway to the 20-win plateau, becoming the fastest relief pitcher to reach that mark in baseball history. In case you're wondering about who had the most wins out of the bullpen ever in the major leagues, well, here you go. Elroy Face had 18 wins for the Pirates back in 1959. 1974 was a big year for relief pitchers to get a boatload of wins. John Hiller of Detroit racked up 15 Ws on the season. The Dodgers' Mike Marshall picked up 14 wins. That was a season Marshall appeared in 106 games. That's a record that still stands. Marshall also became the first reliever to win a Cy Young with that 1974 performance. Lindy McDaniel on the Cards in 1960, and Sparky Lyle of the Red Sox in 1977, both also with 14 wins in a single season to round out the bullpen beasts with the most wins in 1 year. Hey, a little basketball news for Ohio State. We don't talk about the Buckeyes basketball very much these days, but they got a shot in their arm for the upcoming season. L.J. Smith was a verbal commitment for the 2027 recruiting class. I say was because he is reclassifying and signing with the Buckeyes a year early. The 6'4", 180-pound guard, Smith committing to Ohio State in November as he was getting his junior season underway at Mouth of Wilson, Virginia's Oak Hill Academy, a very famous spot for so many players over the years. The decision coming within a few weeks of 5-star 2026 forward Anthony Thompson also committing to the Buckeyes. And now the two will be teammates this upcoming season for John Beebler. With all of that, the Buckeyes moving up in the CBS Sports rankings to get into the top 25 and 1 poll that they do in the offseason. It should be quite a year for Big Ten basketball for sure. Other Big Ten teams in the CBS poll include Michigan at number 3, the reigning champs, Illinois at number 4, Michigan State comes in 6th, USC at 18, 20th ranked Purdue, and number 22, Indiana. Fun times this winter in the Big Ten. All right, stay with us. We've got much more to come. You're listening to the Sports IQ with Larry Smith. Sports IQ, Larry Smith, and joining us here once again on the show is Kevin Brockway, friend of the show with the Gainesville Sun, part of the USA Today Network, talking Florida Gators, and obviously always a lot to talk about when it comes to our friends in Gainesville. Kevin, good to see you again. Let's start with this basketball team. That last time we saw them on the court, the shocker against Iowa in round 2 that derailed what we all thought was a possible, repeat national championship run. But boy, in the offseason, I don't know if anybody, had a bigger win than what Florida did in getting all these guys to come back for another run at it.
Yeah, no question. It was a unique situation. And I do think, Tommy Houck, it started with him basically. And, he was having a conversation with Draymond Green. And, he basically told him, hey, look, the NBA is still going to be there for you. But college is the best time of your life. Why not take advantage of it? And that really, created the momentum for Alex Condon to decide to come back. They're close friends. And then, Ruben Chinilu tested the waters a little bit, but he was more projected as early second, possibly late first round pick, but he didn't want to take that opportunity. And Larry, with NIL now, I mean, you can do the math, right? Even with these rookie contracts versus, what kind of NIL package it would entice for you to stay. Now, you always run the risk of injury or possibly, not having as good a season as you did your previous season. But, the kind of worker that a guy like Tommy Houck is, I find that, certainly that would be hard for me to fathom because when you look at his arc, he's progressed every year. So obviously a good move. Gator Nation is incredibly happy. And this is a team preseason number 1. And, the interesting thing is on the back end, too. They didn't really have anyone transfer. And they added 2 players from Europe that they think are going to help with the perimeter shooting. This is going to be a deep team, 1 through 15, and summer workouts started last week. There's going to be a lot of competition to find spots in the rotation. And it's always good when you practice against good players. Let's put it that way.
Right. No question about that. And how about the culture that Todd Golden has built very quickly right now? And this should be frightening for the rest of college basketball because he is so young. And, he's built, not only does he have a championship, but has guys who want to run it back. Like you said, the NIL dollars, certainly a big part of that. Let's not discount that. That's huge. Makes decisions a little easier in that regard financially. But in terms of just the culture that he has built right now, that Florida appears to be, among the elite now for some time to come.
Yeah, Todd is a coach that players want to play for, I think. And there was some staff continuity this year that maybe they didn't have last year, but with Carlin Hartman coming back too, the big guys coach, who has done a terrific job with the front court players. I think that in terms of Todd's relationships with his players, he's fair. I think he can be firm at times, but probably a little more of a player's coach, a new age coach in this era of the NIL era. I think players today, they want to know the why, and Todd and his staff explain the why really well, especially in analytical sense, and in a film study sense, and I think the players react to that and gravitate to that. And listen, Todd, in 4 years he's won an SEC tournament championship, an SEC regular season championship, and of course a national championship. I mean, that's a pretty good 4-year run, and certainly last year a little disappointing, but I think they're thinking with some of the augmentation and the perimeter to complement the front court this year, that they'll be in better position come March to make a deeper run.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of March, we haven't talked to you since then. How devastating was that loss? It's one thing not to win a national championship. Obviously, it's everyone's goal. But I think even everyone, I had Florida in the Final Four out of that bracket. How much of that disappointment figured into these guys also saying, look, we can make millions and we can run it back and try to win another title, which not many people get a chance to win a second championship. How much was that disappointment? How much did that figure into their decisions?
I think so. Yeah, I think very much so. And I think that, hey, look, credit Ben McCollum. He had an amazing first year in Iowa, and he coached his butt off in that game, to beat Florida basically in their home territory in a close game the way that he did, and the fact that, his team didn't back down. But that being said, I think that disappointment, did play into it, that that this was a group that is determined to run it back. And it's interesting, and I pointed this out in a few other podcasts. You look back to Villanova in 2016, they won the national title. Following year, they got knocked out in the round of 32. And then all those guys came back and won another one in 2018. So I think Florida fans are hopeful for that kind of a pattern, right? Sometimes the year after there's a lot of pressure, but then the year after, right, it loosens up a little bit. But I do think Florida will be preseason top 5, maybe preseason number 1. There will be a lot of eyes on them, certainly. And I think the non-conference schedule they put together, even though they're going to Vegas and they're going to open with Miami and Tampa, so they'll be able to excise that demon a little quickly. But if they win that game, but I do think it's a little more manageable non-conference schedule than it was last year, and that could help them going into SEC play.
Yeah, I've got them as my preseason number 1. Illinois, Duke, Michigan, UConn right there. I think most people's top 5 as well. Talking with Kevin Brockway of the Gainesville Sun. Ton Golden was a name that right away, once North Carolina made a move and fired Hubert Davis after that opening round. Obviously, his name is going to come up with every opening that comes around, just because of who he is and all the things we've talked about already. Was there ever any, from what you were able to gather, any serious thoughts of possibly him entertaining the idea of going to Chapel Hill?
Not really. I think Todd's aspirations are a little higher, but in terms of the NBA, I think that intrigues him probably a little bit more than the college. Very similar to Billy Donovan, back certainly in 06 and 07 when he almost left for the Magic, and then again finally did leave in 2015 for the Thunder. And I think that level of basketball intrigues him, and certainly he has not signed another extension yet, and I think they're kind of working on that, but I do think his focus might be on this year, seeing how this team does. But I would be more concerned about NBA openings than I would be about college openings.
Interesting. Okay. Well, it's a lot of fun what he has built down there. And I think, again, like you said, it's to have them there. The NIL dollars obviously are a big deal right now. something I've noticed. I want to get your thoughts on that. It's an era right now where the blue bloods, the traditional blue bloods, just have not done much in the past decade or two. Duke has hung around, but otherwise, Kentucky, no championship since 2012. North Carolina, since Roy Williams left, they have just the one Final Four. But UCLA won championship since Wooden left. Indiana, almost 40 years since their last title. It's fun to kind of see some of these other teams get a chance to come up and take center stage.
Yeah, right. They call them the nouveau riche. I think Florida's in that category, right? Michigan State, Michigan, what they did. I think, Larry, what's happened is, and we saw right from about 2010 to 2015, the one and done era, certainly had its run with Calipari and with Coach K at the end with that, Justice Winslow team, right? But I think what's happened in the last decade is with the player movement, it started with the grad transfers and now with NIL and, less restrictive transfers, is teams that figure out ways to get old and stay old and counter that talent at the young end that the blue bloods get with more experienced players. And I think that's, more proven players. And I think that's the route that the game has kind of gone, while sprinkling in maybe a decent high school recruiting class here and there, but it doesn't have to be an overwhelming high school recruiting class. Now, what's interesting is, right, in this NBA draft coming up, you've got Cameron Boozer, Darius Acuff. You've got some amazing one and done talents that are leaving. So I was in Destin for SEC spring meetings, and I kind of asked John Calipari, hey, do you think high school recruiting will make a little bit of a comeback here? And he thinks, that's a possibility. But I do think, too, there's something to be said. If you want to get to the highest level, you look at what Dusty May did with, all those transfers from different schools that were older and experienced and rugged, and they won a national title. What Florida did with Walter Clayton, Will Richard, Elijah Martin, sprinkled in with some homegrown players. That seems to be the route that the elite teams are going right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, we are a culture of monkey see, monkey do. And so just as Calipari and the one and dones, that became the big thing to do back in the day. You're right. Now that the whole, Louisville is saying, hey, let's do what Florida did. Why not? Let's see how that works out. And how, not Florida, but Florida 2 years ago, and then Michigan, like you said, with all of the guys coming in. Hey, want to get a quick comment as well about football. Spring is over. Brand new coach. How are things with the football Gators?
Yeah, a very good recruiting class, top 5. They suffered a little bit of a blow. They had one of their, top offensive line recruits flip to Georgia over the weekend, but still a pretty solid class for sure. So there's a lot of enthusiasm on what John Summerall is building on that. Summer workouts here and there, obviously going into the fall. I think the big question, is who's going to be the starting quarterback. Will it be Aaron Philo? Will it be, Tramell Jones Jr., who both looked about even in the spring game? And certainly the offensive line is a little bit of a concern, losing Austin Barber, losing Jake Slaughter, the NFL draft, for sure. But I think they feel pretty good about some other areas of this team. And, when you have a 1,000-yard rusher coming back in Jaden Bond, well, you feel pretty good about that.
Yeah, no question about that. We had the Brendan Sorsby saga here in the past week that dominated our headlines and really had all of us first off shocked, and then later I think all of us weighing in that most people kind of felt this was the wrong move. What was the conversation there in Gainesville about not just Sorsby, but the whole gambling thing overall? And let's just be honest, the integrity of the game was at stake with this decision.
It's crazy. I go all the way back to 2001 with Teddy Dupay, right? And he was, a star player on that 2000, Final Four team for Florida. And the next year, an investigation revealed that he bet on sports and he was, removed from the team, declared ineligible. So, Florida's had a gambling scandal in the way past. But I do think that, I did do a story when I was in Destin that, nowadays, as with apps, it's a lot more accessible. Florida has, their gambling, sports gambling laws. They have, Hard Rock casinos all across, the state where you can bet there and you can bet on the Hard Rock app, and it's exclusive to that. So it might not be as widespread as other states, but it's still there. And, Scott Strickland says basically, hey, look, we just educate our guys. we let them know. The SEC is having some initiative, more posters on the wall. But we do know that, like anything else, it can be an addiction. And certainly in Brendan Sorsby's case, it took on some wild twists and turns. But now that he's entering the NFL supplemental draft, I think that situation with regards to the integrity of college sports is, in the past, and all the appropriate bodies can move on from that.
Yeah, I do hope that it serves as a wake-up call, though, because it was one thing as reading through some of the things that I've had questions as that gambling becomes much more prevalent in terms of the apps. Like you said, you don't have to now go to a casino or phone call. It's right there on your app. You can do it, while you're sitting on the can, whatever, it doesn't matter, but in terms of how do you monitor these things? How do you police these things? And I think it's a big win for not just the NCAA, but maybe just our systems overall, that laws and rules are there for a reason. And they should be allowed to be followed. When people should be allowed to enforce them as they see fit. When you sign on to a Big 12 conference, whatever, as a school, you have, things you have to follow, and gambling, the issue of gambling is one of them.
Exactly. And it gets back to the bigger issue too. Texas Tech, or Sorsby raising this challenge is, in this day and age of college sports is, do these schools really want to be governed? I think that's the big question, and everyone wants governance until it applies to them, and then they want to find loopholes. So I think that's kind of the bigger issue that college sports is facing in this system. It's, if you don't hear the answer you want, you just find a local judge and, try to get it fixed. And I think that's something that, college and administrators are going to have to continue to wrestle with here in these next few years before they can get some kind of more permanent structure.
Yeah, absolutely. Something's got to give. It's a win for now, but let's get this fixed, because this is going to come back again in some shape or form. Hey, Kevin, always great to talk with you, man. Appreciate you letting us invade your summer for a little Gator talk, and hopefully we can talk again once we get football cranked up.
Larry, you can invade my summer anytime. It's always a pleasure talking to you guys.
My friend, appreciate you, man. Enjoy the day. Enjoy the sun. Kevin Brockway joining us once again. Then exactly. She'll answer your phone, and we'll wait for you to come back. Exactly. So, Kevin, thanks so much, brother. Kevin Brockway, once again, Gators beat writer for the Gainesville Sun. Thanks, man, and for the USA Today Network as well. Always good to have his insights here on the show. All right, more to come from the Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
I get a lot of calls from people across the country who are suffering from the affliction of IRS tax debt, and that's because I have a remedy. Hi, I'm the tax doctor, and if you're having any of these tax issues, call me right now. My team specializes in helping people over the age of 50 solve their tax problems, and the bigger your tax problem is, the more money you can save. If you owe the IRS money, or you're about to owe the IRS money, or even if you need to file years of unfiled returns, call us right now. Our friendly, highly trained representatives are waiting right now to take your call. Over the years, we've helped thousands of people just like you stop the tax liens, wage garnishments, and harassing phone calls. You don't need to send the IRS a big fat check. We can negotiate a lower amount. That's what we guarantee for you. So call us right now. Call 833-789-3068.
I just saw something right here on ESPN that got our attention here during the commercial break. Walker Kessler was an outstanding college player, had a nice start to his career in the NBA. But Tony, the numbers are staggering. There's a deal on the, possibly they're talking about a $140 million 5-year deal for Walker Kessler. Now, listen, I'm not trying to belittle the guy or question his talent at all. That's a ton of money for a guy. And in fact, it says it will be the largest contract ever given to a player who yet to be, to a center who yet to be an all-star.
Yeah, I was a little shocked reading that story as well. Like, I know Walker Kessler is a solid piece in the current realm of NBA because he can step out, hit the three, he can protect the rim, he can rebound, he does all three phases well. Not, he's not putting up all-star numbers. He's no big cat. He's, not one of the big centers out there right now. He's definitely not a Wemby, obviously. And I'm just wondering, Utah has been down for a while now, and they've been working so hard to build and collect draft capital and get pieces in place. Why put that much money into the plate for a guy that I've heard conversations the last 2 years at the deadline of them possibly moving Walker Kessler? So
Right.
I'm not an NBA GM. I'm not smart enough to be an NBA GM. But just me as an average fan, this one would have me scratching my head, going, "Why? What?
Yeah.
It doesn't make much sense to me."
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, average of 28 million. I mean, in today's marketplace, that's not, he's not among the elites being paid. I mean, that's just where NBA salaries are. But you're right. It just seems like I don't know. It's perplexing. He missed most of this past season with shoulder surgery. He has become one of the premier shot blockers. That's good for him, but it just seems like a strange number. And so, we'll certainly watch and see where that goes. Hey, want to get in on baseball. We've been talking about the Chicago White Sox here for a few days. Boy, a team that we really beat up and laughed at the last 2 years. Tony, no more. They're playing well and right there among the leaders in the American League.
Yeah, I mean, they got drilled last night by the Yankees, but they are in the middle of an 11-game stretch where they're playing the Phillies, the Braves, the Dodgers, and the Yankees. All four of those teams are either first or second in their respective divisions. And they're playing them on equal footing. The White Sox are currently 5-4 on this 11-game trip that they're on, playing all of these teams, and they're holding their own. They have found a way to rebuild quickly. They jettisoned some pieces, guys like Louis Robert, and they decided to rebuild as fast as they could. It took them a couple years. You had to go through. That was a very painful 2024 season for White Sox fans. I mean, there was no reason each day to get up and look at the box score. You just went, "Oh, we lost. Okay, moving on," and you keep going. But at least you're showing some signs of life. And in the AL Central, which there really isn't a dominant team right now, there's still a chance for the White Sox to make the postseason this year and to be in the mid-June, just a year and a half removed from being the worst team in baseball. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it really is. And we've seen other teams do this, right? I mean, the Astros went through this, the Cubs, the Braves, and it all paid off for them in the end. And so the White Sox, again, one of those, getting bad to get good again. So right now it's working so far for them. You mentioned the Yankees. We were lamenting before about without Aaron Judge. What are they going to do? They're finding a way right now to hold their own without their slugger there in the lineup.
Absolutely. And, quietly, and I don't know how many people on the national scene have taken note of Ben Rice. Ben Rice has got 20 homers so far already. We're not to the All-Star break. So you're looking at a guy that could put up between 45 and 50 homers this year. He's playing good defense for the Yankees. He's hitting for average. He's just doing a really solid job right now, and it's making the loss of Aaron Judge palatable. Now, we don't know what it'll be 2 or 3 months from now. You never can tell when you lose a player of Judge's caliber. Obviously, Yankee fans would love him back in the lineup sooner rather than later. But if you're holding your own, and right now they are, I think they're like 8-4 since Judge went out of the lineup. Keep doing that. If you can win, keep that winning pace up while he's out, then you're good to go. You don't have to rush him back. And that's a good thing for the Yankees because you don't want him to come back and have a relapse and a setback, and then he misses the postseason. If you can keep doing what you're doing, if these guys keep hitting, we've noticed Paul Goldschmidt starting to hit the ball a little bit. He had an awful year last year. He's starting to hit a little bit this year. And like I said, Rice is playing really well. They're getting some really timely pitching. Things are not looking too bad up there in the Bronx.
Yeah, and like you said, it's a long season. We're only 2.5 months into it. A long way to go. But right now, again, like you said, they're up here right now to be holding serve for the moment anyway. All right, that's our show. I appreciate everyone stopping by. I appreciate our guests as well. Man, those Florida Gators, I tell you what, it is just good time to be a Gator fan. Chomp, chomp. For all of us here. Make it a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow here on the Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
Thanks for listening to Sports IQ with Larry Smith, Monday through Friday. Continue the conversation at Sports IQ LS. We'll see you next time.